Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. Now I'm frustrated. I am homeless and don't have many options food-wise. Disclaimer, I don't drink or do drugs, just a guy caught in a bad situation. Like the rest of the world, I have the same options. Eat out or cook for myself. Restaurants are way out of my price range. The cheapest thing on the menu at a fast food place is enough to feed myself for an entire day from a cheap grocery store. My options to prepare my food are limited. I don't cook back at my camp. It is too dangerous and attracts too much attention. So I use the fire pits located in many of my city's parks. FYI, they are legitimate fire pits meant for picnics and for the public to use. Today it was going to rain very early, so I went to the pit I use regularly to cook my breakfast, lunch, dinner. I only eat once a day, early. I got to the pit around 3:30. I wrapped my foil pouch, made of potatoes, carrots, and lunch meat foil bake. I had the fire going and my food in when this male Karen aggressively walked towards me in the pit with a cell phone to his ear. He came up screaming, "What the F are you doing? What the F are you doing? That's effing fire. What the F are you doing?" I said, "I'm cooking dinner." The guy yelled at me to put the fire out, saying it's against the law. Now, this isn't the first time I have dealt with a similar situation. I told him to eat a dick and beat it, and to his credit, he left. Until the fire department showed up. They came to put out my fire. I talked with them, and they said the police were on the way as well and that I could be fined $500 for having a fire in a non-designated place. I said, "Isn't this one of those places with a fire pit?" Well, they decided to wait until the police came. The cops asked me what's cooking. They said, "Yeah, this is the spot to have a fire," and pointed at the sign saying picnic area, or pointed at the sign saying picnic area. And I'll give credit where credit is due. They were damn good cops. They left without even asking my name. P.S. My meal came out fantastic. Many years ago, I was working in my state's police department. We got a new inspector at the station who wanted to chart what all the sections of the station did. His station did instituted a daily diary where we had to put in account for every minute of the shift. Lots of grumbling from the troops over the next few weeks. The inspector would go off about the forms not being recorded properly every day at change of shifts. They said that there would be consequences if they did not truly reflect what we did. I spoke to my shift cue, malicious compliance. I used to get into work 30-odd minutes early to fuel the car, gather my crime-fighting kit, wash the car, prepare for the shift. Now I didn't do this until the minute my shift started. I would then complete these tasks after having started, then calibrate the radar, see what black spots were to be targeted for the day, look at work emails, review the previous night's occurrences, a myriad of other things before heading out onto the road. Now on everything I did, I would record it precisely. Even recording the record on record. Each traffic stop, each job, stopping to give directions or advice would go on the sheet. Then I would return to the station for lunch. Normally, I would grab it on the go or eat it in my car. But hey, he wants the official day's duties. Our employment law required that each officer was entitled to 1/2 hour uninterrupted meal break each shift after 5 hours of duty. The inspector, trying to make the station more efficient, started to roster meals before this time. Boss tried to order us to take our meals as recorded on the roster. We all disregarded it. They took our meals after the 5 hours. At the end of the day, we attached the industrial award to the daily record wrote as per industrial law meal break taken at first possible time after 5 hours. He went off and threatened us to take the meals as written or write-ups would happen. That was reported to the union, who threatened industrial legal action, which he would be personally responsible for. He was forced to rescind that threat. So he gave up on that, doubled down on the daily reporting, writing officers up for non-compliance. I told them all I was doing in the single page issued at the beginning of the shift was now 3 to 4 pages long, each every day for 80 officers for 3 shifts. We swamped him with the information. In addition, if a job was broadcast, we were forced to abandon our meal break, attend to the job. Most times we could not return to finish our meals, so often went hungry. Now, the other part of our meal break rule was that if we did not have a full 1/2 hour uninterrupted meal break, then we would be paid the whole meal break. The boss had a habit of going into the mealroom to have a bitch, complain, or harass the officers in there. So when he did this, it was recorded as an interruption. After a few weeks, productivity was down, hours wasted, his budget being blown out as he had to pay for interrupted lunch breaks, which he then denied payments until the union lodged a court injunction, took the police department to court for every single breach for each person's shift. This amounted to hundreds of matters at thousands of dollars. He said all the daily reporting logs with our interrupted meal breaks were somehow lost. That's okay, the union says. Here are the copies taken. He argued that they were done after the court date were false. But everyone also took copies after they were lodged with his admin assistant with his received stamp on it. Fail for him, the department solicitor approached the union with an offer for us to withdraw the matter. They offered 25 of what we were owed all the reprimands would be lifted. It was rejected. The full 100 was demanded, the reprimands totally withdrawn, like deleted from the records. His Honor ruled in our favor in every single matter. We were all awarded out meal money compensation for the time wasted with the department fighting this all the way. He was directed him to pay when claimed all reprimands deleted immediately or penalties would be issued. He had 2 days to comply. This was Friday afternoon, so he had weekend to get rid of them. Took him until Sunday night to do it. He wasn't paid for the time. As we swamped his and Trey with over 160 pages of daily worksheets, every shift, every day, that's at least 480 pages a day of compliance. He then tried to demand that we only put serious issues down. We all refused, as he had already informed us all that if we did not put everything down, we would be charged with disobedience. But if we followed his new order, we would be disobeying his previous order. He then threatened to charge us all with disobedience if we did not do the new rule. The sergeant sent all this to the union with the threats to his boss's boss. Wouldn't you know, several days later, all his daily reporting sheets were not to be used any longer? Apparently, the union sat down with the district command bosses, let them know that this would be a continuing matter if the inspector was not moved, and that their own positions were now up for review of the mismanagement they allowed the fine the department received from court. The commissioner of police was notorious for terminating those who stuffed around with the troops that dragged the department into court for mismanagement. They had already been embarrassed in court. Had the police department received court costs, I fined for the breaches he could see another court appearance looming, and saw the damage he was doing to the station, promptly transferred him to the district office where he could not supervise anyone. His contract was not renewed. 8 months later, left the department. Those who had known the inspector say he had no idea what problems he caused, was just trying to make the organization more efficient. When they told him how much he made things worse, he just said that the troops never minded missing lunch or eating in the cars before. They told him that his demand to strictly follow policy alienated everyone to put another daily reporting sheet on top of the department's official daily diary was just superfluous. At the end of the day, he had no clue why he lost his job. There were many other stupid things he did, like not issuing pens until the ones we had were fully out of ink, so we had no pen to sign the requisition. And his admin staff were instructed not to lend pens out to sign, or we could buy a pen from them. The exemption to the rule that if it was lost, we could get another one. Cue more malicious compliance. Hey, I don't post much and usually lurk in AIDA and entitled people. I've had a couple of different stories stored over the years and normally just tell them to friends. Said friends told me to post them here, so I'll probably have multiple posts over time. I wasn't sure if this was the right one to put this one in, but friends said it'd be good for entitled people. 25 female, have worked a lot of retail and fast food jobs, and I've got a couple of favorite things that have happened over time. Back in the summer of 2022, I used to work at the old wub of, say, as a sandwich artist. We were located near a beach, so you can imagine how swamped we were on the daily. Consistently, people would be in a line out of the door and well after closing time. I got some dang good tips, though, especially when the richer folks visiting their vacation homes came in. There was a group of kids that were there for a church camp and were in there regularly for lunch for the whole week. On this specific day, when I was alone on shift, they were getting their orders, and there's a good line of them. A frazzled-looking business lady came in, was at the end of the line. She wore a business skirt, hair done up and heels, looking the very part of a secretary. I hadn't seen her the entire summer. She was new to me. Business lady didn't look the part of any Corinne, just looked like a stressed-out woman. I absolutely get that, and I feel like what happened next was due to work stress and all, and possibly having a very short lunch break, but it still wasn't the greatest experience at the time. I do commend her for waiting until she got to the counter to start being all huffy and puffy, though. The kid sat, and she said her sandwich order. It was a little snippy, but otherwise went well until we got to the vegetables. Now, those that have worked as wub of say know that it is incredibly hard to hear people's orders across the counter. We have whirring machinery behind and in front of us. The counters create a sound barrier that locks the whirring to where we stand as we work, hence being the reason you get workers asking to repeat your order or repeating what you've said back to make sure we heard you right. It's not fun, and we don't get a giggle out of asking you to repeat. Business lady ticked off what she wanted on her sandwich, and just as she got to what was apparently the most crucial part of her order, one of the kids got up and got ice from the ice machine. The noise of the machine going, plus the ones I was surrounded by, made it to where I completely could not hear her. I gave that cringy, forced, polite retail smile and asked her to repeat that last ingredient. The woman huffed and repeated it. Guess what happened? The kid apparently didn't have enough ice and ran the machine again. I again couldn't hear her and asked her to repeat again. Guess what happened again? Ice. Me not catching. Again. Did I dare ask once more? I barely even opened my mouth before this lady must have realized I still didn't catch it and absolutely went off. Her face turned so red, she actually stomped her foot and threw her hands up into the air before shouting, Pickles. Pick less. What are you, stupid? I said pickles. What part of that is so hard to understand? You get the damn green things and shove it between two damn slices of bread. It's pick. It's not rocket science. It's effing pickles. What else could I be saying to put on it? Mine, there's usually like 10 ingredients to pick from. She'd only said lettuce and onion so far. Pickles were surprisingly the least asked for ingredient where I worked. The entire shop was silent at this, and she kept stomping her foot and yelling about pickles. She beat her hands on the glass of the counters before she suddenly stopped, took a deep breath, threw her hands up again and said, I don't need this right now, and walked out. Left the sandwich, left her purse, and possibly some dignity when one kid called out, Bye, Karen. I didn't know she'd left her purse on the floor on the other side of the counter until a kid pointed it out. She came and picked it up when the next shift came in. Well, I get she probably had a lot going on. My friends and I refer to her as the pickle lady due to the way she kept separating the pick and less to make a point. A year later, every time one of us asks for pickles somewhere, one of us doesn't fail to ask, What are you, stupid? Damn. So here's the deal. I've got this sweet little Prius, right? Nothing fancy, just my trusty set of wheels that's taken me places. Now, I ain't rich, and I sure as hell ain't driving some shiny sports car, but my Prius and we got history. Now, cue Corinne. She rolls in with this yellow Porsche, acting like she owns the whole damn neighborhood. First day, she's eyeballing my parking spot like it's the last piece of pizza at a party. She starts throwing around some math lingo, saying it's mathematically closer to her place or some nonsense. I'm just like, listen, lady, I've been parking here since before you knew what a Prius was. You can park next to me, but this is my turf. Of course, she ain't having it. Every now and then, I catch her trying to sneak her Porsche into my spot when she thinks I'm not looking. It's like a game of parking spot chess, and she's trying to checkmate me. But I ain't one to back down. Now here's where it gets wild. One day, I decided to take a bus to visit my mom for a couple of days. I leave my Prius in its usual spot, minding its own business. Fast forward 3 days, and I'm back, expecting a warm welcome from my four-wheeled buddy. But lo and behold, my heart drops when I see my car looking like it got into a fight with a monster truck. All four wheels flat as pancakes, scratches everywhere. It's a damn crime scene, and Karen's peeking out from behind her curtains like she's watching a soap opera. I'm fuming. No way this happened by accident. My first thought is, who the hell did this? And then my eyes lock onto Karen's hideous yellow Porsche. Man, you won't believe the crap I went through with this neighbor from hell. Let me spill the beans on the whole saga. So there I am, living my best life with my trusty Toyota Prius. Yeah, I know it ain't a Ferrari, but it gets me from A to B without burning a hole in my wallet. I've had that baby for years, and I love it like it's my kid. Park it in the same spot in my compound every single day, right? Life's good. Now enters Karen. Picture this. A woman in her 40s with a yellow Porsche that screams I'm compensating for something. First day, she moves in. She's eyeing my parking spot like it's the last piece of pizza at a party. She starts spouting some mathematical nonsense about distances from her place, claiming it's her divine right to park there. I tell her, listen, lady, I've been parking here since before you knew what Prius was. You can park next to me, but this is my turf. Of course, she ain't having it. Every now and then, I catch her trying to sneak her Porsche into my spot when she thinks I'm not looking. It's like a game of parking spot chess, and she's trying to checkmate me. But I ain't one to back down. Now, here's where it gets wild. One day, I decide to take a bus to visit my mom for a couple of days. I leave my Prius in its usual spot, minding its own business. Fast forward 3 days, and I'm back, expecting a warm welcome from my four-wheeled buddy. But lo and behold, my heart drops when I see my car looking like it got into a fight with a monster truck. All four wheels flat as pancakes, scratches everywhere. It's a damn crime scene, and Karen's peeking out from behind her curtains like she's watching a soap opera. I'm fuming. No way this happened by accident. My first thought is, who the hell did this? And then my eyes lock onto Karen's hideous yellow Porsche. I don't waste time. I call up my neighbor Kelly, who's got security cameras on her property. We huddle around her computer, and there it is. Karen, under the cover of darkness, keying my Prius like it's a scratching post. We've got her red-handed, or should I say yellow Porsche, handed. I'm furious, but I keep my cool. I call the cops, file a report, and let justice do its thing. But that's not enough for me. I decide to take this entitled Karen to small claims court. It's not about the money. It's about teaching her a lesson. We're in court, and Karen's doing the classic I'm innocent routine. She's got her lawyer, and I'm standing there with my trusty Prius keychain as my defense. The judge, though, he's not buying her act. We present the evidence, the CTV footage of Karen's midnight escapade. It's like Judge Judy on steroids. The judge doesn't mess around. He looks at Karen dead in the eyes and says, "Ma'am, you mess with the wrong guy's Prius." Okay, he didn't say it exactly like that, but you get the gist. Long story short, the judge rules in my favor. Karen has to pay up, and I ain't talking pocket change. I calculate the cost of a brand new Prius, and that becomes the magic number. She's got to cough up the dough for a car exactly like mine. I'm feeling vindicated, but Karen's still got that entitled scowl on her face. She writes the check like it's killing her to part with that much money. I take it, and you bet your sweet Prius I cash it. As for my car, it's back in action. New wheels, fresh coat of paint to cover Karen's scratches. It's like my Prius went to the spa and came back looking better than ever. And you know what the best part is? Karen can't even look me in the eye anymore. Every time I see her, she does this awkward shuffle, like she's trying to avoid the Prius Avenger. Lesson learned, Karen. You mess with a man's parking spot in his Prius, and you'll pay the price. I might not have a Porsche, but my Prius and we've got something money can't buy, the satisfaction of putting an entitled neighbor in her place. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. So I'm not entirely sure if this qualifies as an entitled parent or just someone who's mentally insane, but this just happened a few hours ago, so here goes. I, 29 male, work for a small hardware store in my city. I'm about 6'2", chubby, but still muscular from all the heavy lifting I do for work. Early this morning, me and, we will call her Nancy, 49 female, were at the store before opening to do inventory. It was about an hour before opening and Nancy went outside to grab something from her car. She came back a few minutes later at gunpoint, with someone walking behind her. I've never been involved in any kind of robbery before, aside from minor shoplifting attempts, so I froze in place. The gunman pointed it at me, telling me to keep my hands visible and to follow them. Nancy was technically the opening manager, and therefore had keys to the store and vault in the back office, so he held me up while she emptied it. He was gone in about 10 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Our store doesn't have any kind of silent alarm, so once we were sure he was gone, I went and called 911. After I get off the phone, Nancy comes up to me and asks, "Word for word, what the F is wrong with you?" I stared at her, completely caught off guard, and asked her what she was talking about. She proceeds to rant at me up until the police arrive. To sum up her rant, she basically said I was a pathetic excuse of a man for not protecting a single mother when she was in danger. I asked her what she expected me to do in that situation. She expected me to try and get the gun away from him so he couldn't hurt her. It was around that point that police arrived to take our statements and ensure we were okay. My actual boss is on vacation this week but has given me the next 2 days off, paid, I love this guy, to recover from the shock of the situation and to call him if I need anything. I haven't told him about Nancy's rant yet. I'm still trying to process everything she said to me. Edit. Sorry, still new to posting. Wasn't sure if this info is relevant or not. Nancy is divorced, and her son is a 19U college student who doesn't live with her. During her rant, she kept going on about who would watch my baby if I died, stuff like that. I'm hoping it was just adrenaline from the robbery, but if the next time I see her she's still acting that way, I'll report her. Edit 2. I greatly appreciate the comments people have sent. I didn't think I'd get that many replies. There have been some comments claiming Nancy was in on it. She seemed genuinely terrified, so I doubt she was, but now I can't get that thought out of my head. Update. Hey everyone. Not sure if this is how you do an update, but here goes. I just wanted to start by thanking everyone for the kind words and advice I was given. It was definitely the scariest moment of my life, and I've decided I'm going to look into potential therapy. Before the actual update, I just wanted to explain a few things based on some comments I saw in my original post. 1. The hardware store I work for is small just in the physical sense. It's still technically one of the big-name hardware stores in the U.S., just not warehouse size like the ones with the orange and blue logos. 2. When I said that Nancy had emptied the vault, I wasn't referring to an actual safe lockbox. The vault in our store refers to a small, double-locked room where they store the money orders the store receives from the big armored trucks. 3. Nancy actually is the HR manager for our store. Because the store manager was out of town for the week, she was the acting store manager along with one other person who was off that day. My actual store manager, Nancy, and the third associate are the only ones with keys to the vault. So, now for the update. To be honest, I'm not sure if I'm more angry or scared right now, but I got off the phone with my store manager half an hour ago. He was reviewing the security camera footage that was sent to him from his hotel room. I knew the store had cameras. What I didn't know is we have cameras that face the parking lot. Some of you mentioned it in the comments, so you may not be surprised to hear that Nancy has been arrested for assisting in robbing the store. I can't go into extreme detail, but according to my boss, the gunman was seen exiting Nancy's car when she went outside. They spoke for a bit before walking back up to the store. I don't know much else aside from that. The guy was her new boyfriend. I'm feeling so many different emotions right now. Confusion, anger, fear, etc. She traumatized someone 20 years younger than he for a few $1,000s. I don't know if she was chewing me out about the single mother thing because she'd hoped I would have done something to warrant getting shot over. All I know is that this woman who originally did my hiring interview is mentally insane. As I said, I think I'm going to look into therapy for this. It's just too much for me to process alone. My boss has offered me additional leave of absence if needed as well. So for now, I'm going to take some time off, and if I get any more info I can share, I'll further update you. Final update. Hey everyone, I didn't think I'd be posting again this soon, but it sounds like things are being handled outside of court, so I should be in the clear. I'm not sure if there is going to be much more of a resolution than this, but if more happens, I'll update you all further. Before I begin, I just want to say that I'm doing okay for the most part. I had my first therapy session 2 days ago, and she seems like a good one, so I'm going to stick with her for now. I told her about my Reddit post, and she thinks that as long as I'm not giving out real names or anything, it could be very therapeutic to discuss what happened to me with others. Now for the update. Nancy's boyfriend is in prison for numerous charges, not contained solely to the robbery. That's the easiest part of this to explain. The rest gets weird. A week ago, I was asked to meet with Nancy and her attorney as she wanted to speak with me. I refused because I'm not at a point where I'm willing to speak with her, let alone look at her. 2 days later, my company rep told me he had an email from Nancy meant for me. He reviewed it and agreed to pass it along to me if I wanted to read it. Against my better judgment, I said yes, and wow, it got crazy. The email was a letter of apology to me. Nancy's boyfriend was an incredibly abusive drug user who had her too afraid of him to leave her or call the police. The robbery was his idea, and she was forced to go along with it under threat of being unloved. She then apologized for her rant to me, claiming it was because, in her mind, she believed I would have stepped in to save her somehow, and when I didn't, she had a bit of a mental breakdown. There was more to the letter, but those are really the main takeaways. I contacted my rep back telling him to reply that I appreciated her apology and I'm sorry for what she went through, but that I will never forgive her for putting me through that and to never contact me again when all is said and done. The last I heard, she's taking a plea deal. That's really all I have to give you all. I appreciate all of your helpful comments and will continue to answer questions you may have. I'm still in a messed up place mentally, but I'm getting the help I need. Thank you all again and be safe out there. Edit. Just wanted to throw this in there because I think there is some confusion. There's no longer a trial. I'm not a witness anymore, nor will anyone be testifying. This is all being settled outside of court. As for Nancy, I do believe her apology was sincere. There was additional info revealed via my company rep in the letter that shows the abuse she was suffering was real, but I won't go into specifics out of respect for a victim. This will not surprise some people who commented on my previous posts because my parents did some of the exact things they said they would, which was wanting either my money or my signature. I did expect the classic lines of narcissists saying that I owed them or give me some kind of socialist BS of sharing the wealth. But that was just my imagination running wild. The ensuing situation was somewhat similar to that, but much more tame, I guess you could say. They seemed to know not to push me too far now, and were mostly aiming for pity. It began when my parents recently got in touch with me through social media and asked for a meeting in a public place of my choosing. It just screamed trap, but I wasn't afraid. In fact, I was amused. They know I'm not to be screwed with anymore, so I could only wonder what they wanted this time. I picked a local restaurant that may have a name of an olive and a garden in it, and we met up there. Dan was with them, but he kept his mouth shut most of the time. We had awkward greetings, ordered some drinks, and cut to the chase. My parents begged me to help Dan get his own apartment so he could finally move out. Apparently, Dan's credit isn't so great. Gee, I wonder why. Could it be his wife regularly spends him into a hole? Well, they asked that I help by either supplying some capital or by co-signing for the apartment and helping to pay the rent for it. I simply said no to both. That's when Dan spoke up in anger and yelled at me that I have so much and I don't have a family to support like he does. He needed my help, and I should be sparing the money for his family since I don't have one myself. I laughed and asked where they were when I needed their help. That's right. They were pointing and laughing at me for being homeless. Or should we go further back to my childhood? I'd love to delve into that with plenty of ears to listen in around us. My mother grabbed my hand and begged me not to speak of any of it. My father and Dan both just looked away and said nothing. Pretty sure they wanted to say something like they used to at me, but held their tongues. I asked them if they thought I was rich or something, and their looks said it all. And when I told them I don't have that kind of money, they looked at me like deer in headlights. I broke it down about how much I'd managed to save for the down payment on my house and the way I had to live and work in order to save that much so fast. And then how I spent nearly all of it on the down payment of my house. I'm still in financial recovery. I did have monthly income to spare, yes, but most of it was going right into my savings. I asked Dan what his yearly salary was, and when he told me, I pointed out that it was actually a bit higher than mine. I then loosely broke things down in rough math in front of my parents on how about 70 of my income goes to my mortgage, insurance, gasoline, internet, phone, food, and other bills. And then there's maybe 30 of that left at most that I can put into savings. And I need that money saved to get back on my feet in time. And I have to make sure I have savings to fall back on. My truck is from the 90s. If it were to break down, I'd need money to either fix or replace it. And there's other things one would need a rainy day fund for, like home repairs, doctors, taxes, lawyers, or anything in general you'd need quick cash for when it's a sudden unexpected expense. So, as you can see, I just can't spare money for Dan. And I also refused to co-sign for anything as that would leave me on the hook for any bill Dan couldn't or wouldn't pay. Then I pointed out that that's likely why my parents didn't co-sign for Dan's apartment themselves long ago. And my mother just started crying again. I was pretty much one step ahead of them in all of this. I'm not an ATM, and I'm not a fool. And I stated that right to their faces. I expected my father to become angry with me like he always does. But this time he just, didn't. I've known this man to explode on me for the slightest provocation of not enabling my brother all of my life. But this time he just didn't do that. There wasn't even a sneer on his face. The only way I could describe the look he had was regret and defeat. Maybe regret for being a crappy parent. Or maybe regret because he can't bully me around anymore. Who knows? Either way, my parents couldn't really argue with me, and I wasn't about to give them any money. Dan just got up and said this was all just a waste of their time, and that he was leaving. My mother started apologizing for him, and still wanted to leave. Then just to kill with kindness, I offered to buy them a round of unlimited soup and salad while we were all there. I guess they couldn't turn down free food since we hadn't ordered anything but drinks yet, and they stayed. I went out of my way to talk about anything other than money. Dan remained quiet and was either eating his food or looking at his phone. But my parents just awkwardly talked with me. They brought up that they've recently joined a local Christian church, and that they'd already been going for the last 2 weeks. I said good for them, and they of course started trying to advertise that they'd like me to go too. I simply said no thanks, and they were smart enough not to push further. When the meal was finished, Dan left a $10 on the table for the tip and walked off without saying another word to me or anyone. My mother just excused his behavior and we all parted ways. That was about it. Not nearly as much drama as I thought there'd be. But this is still far better than how things used to be with my parents and brother. As for sister-in-law, she's been regularly complaining online about my parents. She really doesn't seem to like the fact that she's not the queen bee of their house. And I think her toxicity is finally getting to them. Why else would they be so desperate to come crawling back to me? Sister-in-law actually wants my parents to move into a camper like I had to do in order to make space in the house. And she's being told no, every time. She does seem to have a following of Karen-minded people like her thought. Because here and there I get messaged by someone I don't know that are intent on raging at me for not giving up my house for sister-in-law. I don't bother to argue with these people anymore. I just block and move on. Though there was one persistent troll who had my phone number, and they call from a different number every time. Yes, it seems to be the same person who called me to say I need to make way for a real family man like Dan. But I could care less. The calls, though, seem to have slowed down, if not maybe stopped, because I made it clear to that person that they were only amusing me by keeping this up so long. The last time they called was around the beginning of the month, and it's been silence from them since then. Hi guys, I've been missing posting here, so I thought I'd tell a story and recent events reminded me of it. Sorry if something has a strange context. I'm Brazilian and English is not my native language. A bit of context. 8 or 9 years ago, my mother got a boyfriend. He was nice, but as soon as my mother announced that she was pregnant, everything changed. He was a heavy drinker, and whenever he drank, he would become verbally abusive and aggressive. Although he never raised his hand to hit anyone, it was extremely draining on me and my 2 sisters. My mother and my ex-stepfather, let's call him P2, broke up and came back again and again. They are currently separated and will never get back together, I guarantee it. 4 years ago, after I got back from school, I decided to sit down and listen to music on my cell phone while P2 and my mother fought in the kitchen. It was a normal fight until out of nowhere, he grabbed my mother's arm and slapped her. She fell to the floor with tears in her eyes and P2 prepared to slap her again, but she couldn't. You saw from the previous report that I got a taste for the fight. I grabbed one of his hands and gave him an armbar. He asked what the F is this, and I took advantage of the armbar and knocked him to the ground and sat on him. P2 is 1.69 and 78 kilos. I am 1.72 and weigh 130 kilos. Yeah, I'm fat. I put both his hands on my back and sat on them. He kept yelling, "Get the F off me and I'll kill you if you don't," and I was loving it and laughing and saying, "Get me out of here if you can." My mother asked me to leave so she could kick him out of the house, which I did, and I left with a smile on my face. He looked at me and called me a son of a witch and a fat bastard, and I punched him right in the eye. He fell. I don't know if because of the punch or drunk. A piece of his eyebrow stayed in my hand. He got up and told me, "Do it again if you're a real man." So I threw another punch, this time in the other eye and harder to make sure I knocked him down and not the drink. He lay on the floor unconscious, so I called his father, who in turn took him and my mother, and he didn't speak for almost 6 months. But unfortunately, the two got back together so as not to hurt my little sister's feeling. But the worst part is that this wasn't the only time. If you want, I'll bring the other time he tried to do this. Thank you all. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.